Hello YouTube, Reddit Math here, and welcome back to some more door kickers. Now, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm recording this commentary in post. We're going to be jumping into the Solomon Islands Embassy mission, which is the first stop and execution mission that we have ever done. As you can see here, the symbol is a little hostage with a gun to his head. Now, what that means is that we don't just have hostages, we have in the upper right there a terrorist who is going to kill that hostage in about 30 seconds, I believe. So there are hostages and terrorists all over the building, but we've got to get to that to stop that from happening in a short period of time. Now, we're deploying here with our two assaultmen with Evos in the upper left. We've got a point man and a shield bearer coming in at the bottom. The reason that I'm doing this in post commentary is this video is going to be a little over 20 minutes long, but it took me like 45 minutes to complete it, largely due to a terrible error that I make about halfway through where I accidentally exit the game and then I have to like rebuild the entire plan. And I didn't want to make you guys watch all that. And like as I tried to just edit things down, it became really clear really quickly that it didn't flow well together. The commentary really suffered. And so we're just going to do it like this. I'm not actually going to spend a ton of time talking about what's going on screen. I'll interject occasionally as it becomes relevant. But I think a lot of what I'd like to do today is answer a question that I've gotten from a couple of people on Twitter, as well as a few people that have seen these videos that know me in real life, which is that they're kind of surprised finding out that I used to kick in doors with an assault rifle in my past, especially considering now I'm a long-haired and bearded man. That can come as a surprise to some people. And so I just wanted to take the next 20 minutes or so and kind of go over where that came from and like what I had done in the past and the experiences that I'm sort of talking about here. So while I'm designing this little plan, we're just going to go into that. Not to date myself too much here, but basically rewinding back to 2001 when I was 17. I had enlisted into the United States Marine Corps. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, in September of 2001, terrorist attacks were carried out against the United States, and that then led to a subsequent war on terror that the U.S. had launched. So I ended up going to boot camp in 2001 and doing 13 weeks of training there, which was always joked about is not considered basic training, but boot camp, because there was nothing basic about it. In those 13 weeks, we really didn't cover this kind of activity very much. The closest combat training that you see in boot camp is about a week called Field Week, where you do the whole crawling under barbed wire and shooting at, targets at a range that are at a known distance, that kind of stuff. There's also like a rifle qualification done on a 500-yard line, known distance target shoot, mostly slow fire, although there are like 2 rapid fire sequences that happen. But, it doesn't really prepare you for any of this. It's much more of a traditional kind of warfare setup, and was still very much training for like the Cold War becoming a hot war, I felt like. Once I got out of boot camp, the Marine Corps then kind of splits into 2 different paths, or at least it did at the time. Some of this information may be outdated today. But after boot camp, all Marines go to the Infantry Training Battalion, where they either attend Marine Corps combat training or they go to the School of Infantry for its training. Marine Combat Training, or MCT, is like a 3-week, it's 21 or 22 days of training, I believe, and is what all of the Marines that are not going to be getting a primary combat MOS go to a 10. I did not go to that, so I'm not entirely clear about what they train on. It's kind of, I think, an overview of a lot of different weapon systems, just in case, you know, you ever find yourself in a situation where you're going to need that stuff. So even admin clerks and cooks and all of that kind of stuff in the Marine Corps, they still go through that training before they learn how to be admin clerks or cooks. If you are going to end up with a combat MOS, you instead attend the Marine Corps School of Infantry for 8 weeks. And now, relating to this kind of stuff again, it doesn't really cover much of that. It might today. I would actually be really surprised if it didn't today. But at the time, again, it felt much more like we were preparing to fight another large country's military. We spent a couple of days going into MOUT training, which is military operations in urban terrain. Although, whenever I went through the school, one of our classes on it actually got rained out. The safety vehicle couldn't make it to our location because the road had flooded, and so we ended up just supplementing classroom training instead. I believe there's about a week of it total, but that's for people that are primarily going to be Marine Corps riflemen. And my primary MOS in the Marine Corps was actually as a mortarman. It's ironic because it's nothing I ever ended up using, but it's what I trained for in the School of Infantry, was how to use mortar systems and call for fire and all of that kind of stuff. It's not really applicable to the war that ended up happening in Iraq, and our mortar systems basically sat around gathering dust while we were there. But that's what I was training for there, and so I didn't go through any advanced MOUT training or anything. Although my understanding of it is the military operations and urban terrain part means you're primarily learning to fight around buildings, you know, World War II France style combat, where you anticipate that there are buildings around and you're moving between them, and that they provide obstacles, and occasionally you need to clear them, and you mostly do that clearing by like throwing in a hand grenade first and then following after it. So maybe it's for the best that I never saw that kind of training in any great degree. Once I was done at the School of Infantry, I ended up going to not an infantry unit, but being recruited by the 4th MEB. The Marine Corps' 4th MEB had actually just been reactivated in October of 2001, so a little less than 2 months after September 11th, with the specific task of becoming like an anti-terrorism unit. And there's a lot of politics involved with that, but let's just say the plan wasn't entirely thought through, but it needed to happen, and it needed to happen fast. The Marine Corps stepped forward and said that they could do it. So the things I did for and with the 4th MEB, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, mainly because I signed some very serious NDAs whenever I left there. But I'm certainly glad that I did go to the 4th MEB and that I went through that stuff. We're actually going to snap back to the action for just a second. You're going to see me attempt my first run through, which is going to go bad for a whole lot of reasons. Yeah. So that entry into the lobby at the front there is real rough. There are people straight ahead and guys to the left and to the right. I also want you to note, up top actually goes pretty well. Tosses the flashbang, walks in, but then the Tango ends up shooting one of the hostages. And I then end up restructuring that lower entry and swapping these guys around and play with that for a little bit. So I spent 2 years with the unit I was in the 4th MEB, and the training was really good. The training was a lot of this stuff, a lot of building clearing and a lot of like vehicle operations and that sort of stuff that at that time, the Marine Corps infantry wasn't super focused on, which was great because 2 years later, I would end up leaving the 4th MEB and going to an infantry unit, the 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, 7th Marine Regiment in Southern California, out of 29 Palms, which, if you know nothing about America's geography, they're in the middle of the desert. It is insanely hot and probably the best training you could ever get if you're going to then deploy to the Middle East later. However, the training was still like kind of trying to get up to speed, I felt like, with what was going on in the like modern conflict we had in Iraq and Afghanistan at the time. Coming from the unit that I'd been with and the training that I had had, I felt like was just fantastic. As an example that I feel like I can give, the difference in being able to train in like what are referred to as kill houses, like buildings constructed out of tires where you can use live fire ammunition, throw flashbangs, all of that. That was the kind of training that the 4th MEB was doing. Back in an infantry battalion, we largely use simunitions, which are kind of sort of paintball gunny type things, to do that kind of stuff. You couldn't throw flashbangs at each other. Live fire exercises were on ranges and that sort of thing. So it was very good. As another example, the type of vehicle training that I'd had, the Marine Corps infantry would send people to like a 2-day course to learn how to drive a Humvee. I went to like a 2-week course to learn how to drive one, and got a lot more comprehensive instruction. Now, snapping back again to the action, you're about to see the plan that I would finally come up with, which is going to go a whole lot better, except for one thing. Yeah. So what keeps happening at the top left there is like I've queued that guy up to throw a flashbang, but the enemy coming over and opening and closing the door somehow like clears that command from him, which gets super annoying and causes this to go wrong over and over again. This is one of the primary reasons that ends up being so long. This is actually where I accidentally click out of the mission. It erases everything. I have to then set up the mission again from scratch. One of the changes I make right here is swapping out a point man for another assaultman with the MP5, just to bring in some more firepower into it all. I then go ahead and set up the rest of it, and we're going to come back to that plan set up in just a second. So with 3-7, I ended up deploying to Iraq. We were in a major metropolitan city, the city of Ramadi. Population's like 400,000, which is comparable to where I live now. And major streets, highways, you know, I won't say high rises, but 7-story buildings, all that kind of stuff that we were often clearing and fighting through. And so the like room clearing stuff that I had spent just so many hours on in training and in practice with the 4th MEB was really great to have had an opportunity to do that prior to deploying with an infantry battalion. I felt like it was a system at the time that was set up that had a lot of benefits, kind of both ways. The unit that we came back to, like, they benefited a lot from us being boots on the ground that had that kind of training. So again, here's the mission that I finally end up running, and it goes pretty well except for just one thing. I basically find out that I can't clear this opening lobby with just those 2 guys in the front, and it relies on that 3rd guy coming in to actually get it done properly. Additionally, for just whatever reason, the flashbang command remained on the guy in the upper left this time, even though the door got opened and closed. which I just have no control over, and I guess just kind of lucked out. I was a little bit frustrated, though, after all of the plans got cleared, and so I didn't bother actually redoing the stuff in the lower left and the lower right, because it had never come into play. Like, there had never been anybody in any of those rooms on any of the other runs. And then, of course, on this run, there are people in those rooms. And so I have to end up leading people around manually. So I don't get the clear it all in one plan, like, achievement, I guess, for this run. And so I end up restarting it to try to get that again. Again, just leading to taking more and more time. So the deployment to Iraq, I don't even know how to summarize it in like a short video or anything. It was unlike anything I've ever done, at oftentimes horrible and tragic, at other times uplifting and inspiring, etc., etc. So this is me trying to be like, oh, well, I guess all I needed to do was just path somebody over to there and have them do it. I'm going to replay it again, but I think it's like, I'm pretty sure it's not going to succeed on the first try, and we're going to watch it a third time when it finally does. I finally got, let's see, I got back from Iraq in 2006 and got out of the Marine Corps then. Interestingly, the 4th MEB also disbanded in 2006, citing that it wasn't administratively set up very well to perform its anti-terrorism task. The personnel from the 4th MEB that were with them at that time basically reformed into MARSOC, the Marine Corps Special Operations Command. Prior to that, the Marine Corps had never lended troops to Special Operations. They had always kept them distinct and part of their own units, but kind of interagency cooperation stuff became really big after the Department of Homeland Security was formed here, and all of that kind of thing. So that is now MARSOC. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think the 4th MEB exists in any capacity right now, but I was never, Special Operations, as that's a specific designator for Special Operations Command, and we weren't a part of that at that time. So finally I set up with 3 flashbangs going into here. I'm going to wait for this guy to walk past the window one more time. We're going to flashbang and take the sniper shot, which is about as much shock and awe as you could imagine for clearing that room. But it finally goes down, and I'm done, and yay. And you saw all this in 18 minutes, but it takes me like 45 or something, and I didn't think that you should be forced to suffer through that like I was. So instead, I'm just kind of going over how everybody did for the mission, that kind of thing. I'm going to back out here and taking a look at the next mission. Thankfully is a lot smaller and is not an execution type stop the hostage from getting shot. It's just a regular hostage mission. Additionally, we're going to go in and spend 2 Doctrine Points in order to grab some shotgun skills. I really wanted one-shot breach because the one time I tried to use a shotgun as a breaching weapon, it taking multiple shots was just ridiculous. And then additionally, gonna grab the like faster pump action, I believe, so that pump action shotguns shoot faster, which is ironic because then I am about to go upgrade some equipment, and I end up getting a shotgun that is not pump action. Feeling some nostalgia for my time in the 4th MEB, we used the Joint Combat Shotgun, or the M1014. We were actually the very first unit to get it. Like, we had serial numbers that were like Y6 zeros and a 3, I think was our lowest. We're always told that 1 and 2 had been kept by Benelli themselves, and our unit had like numbers 3 through 200 or something were throughout the 4th MEB during that time frame. So they're an amazing shotgun. The Argos system is like a semi-automatic gas-operated recoil system that is super fast and fluid to shoot with. The recoil is very, very low because it's using a lot of that blowback to recock the weapon. It's all around a great shotgun. I think they were upgrading from the Mossberg to that, and I'm very glad that we had those instead of a pump action shotgun for a whole lot of things that we did. So the only downside, not going to come into play into door kickers at all. They can't shoot less than lethal rounds because you can't manually cycle, and so beanbags and things like that, rubber bullets, aren't permissible in the 1014s. But we never had a need for rubber bullets or beanbags, so it never really came into play. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it's a departure. Let me know if this is okay. We might do more post-commentary as we get into later missions and the episodes get longer. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. If you liked this video, feel free to subscribe in order to see more. And I will catch you guys next time.